Welcome to the Solid Verbal. And now, Dan and Ty.
Dan Rubenstein, I have very big news to share with you right now.
Oh, man. Are you joining Bob Chesney in Westwood? Is that happening? Official?
Let's make it a December to remember. The calendar has turned. We know a lot more now that it is December. We will talk through some of that and much, much more. We're going to take a spin on the coaching carousel. We're going to talk through some of the brewing playoff debates. We're going to give shout outs to teams that exceeded expectations that we feel we need to celebrate. And we're going to take a quick meandering through some of the games, not all of the games, but some of the games that Conference Championship Week has in store. Welcome back, my friend. Has the voice healed? Have you gotten sleep? How you feeling?
Oh, I feel great, Ty. You know, sometimes when we come around to Monday, I'm like, oh, man, we're on to the next week already. I'm still recovering from the previous week, but it was a long, cold Thanksgiving extended weekend. And even though we did a live stream on Friday, even though we did a live stream on Saturday, and then a live show Saturday night, a couple watch-alongs in the reaction stream, I had nobody to talk to all the stuff that just completely broke yesterday across this great land. Like, my 4-year-old had very limited interest in the idea of Pat Fitzgerald coaching Michigan State.
Yeah.
At one point, he was like, absolutely, Texas deserves to be in the playoff. And I was like, you don't know anything. He was like, no, you don't know ball, Dad. And it wasn't the same. It just wasn't the same. So I'm glad to be here with you because we've got a lot to pong off of each other.
We absolutely do. So for those of you tuning in at home, whether via YouTube, via the audio experience, whatever does it for you, please hit follow or subscribe to help support what Dan and I do. We will be with you all through the off season. The second season is officially now underway, and we're going to get to that, I promise you, here momentarily. Of course, if you're going out to verballers.com or patreon.com/solidverbal, either or will get you to our little paid offering where you can sign up as a certified or premium verballer. You get all these episodes a day early without the ads. You get access to the Discord server. And of course, the game that we are spinning up in time for bowl season / the postseason, Dan Rubenstein.
Yeah.
With all that being said, why don't we take a spin on the carousel? It's where everybody else is right now.
Ooh, the coaching carousel.
The roar of that imaginary dinosaur, for whatever reason, I do not know why you put that in there. That means that we've got coaching news to discuss, and boy, do we ever. So we knew going into this year.
Yeah.
We just knew that it was going to be a very active coaching cycle.
Yes.
We saw hirings, in some cases firings, during the season, before the season was fully through. We've got a bunch more now to report here on today's episode. We kind of played it cool on Sunday. We didn't break in to do live streams or anything crazy. We wanted to give this cycle more of a chance to marinate and work itself out. And of course, the biggest domino was Lane Kiffin.
And by the way, should mention, this doesn't just apply to Lane Kiffin, but all of these coaches moving, not moving, or anything like that, this is a serious life decision, Ty. And there is something you need to think about before making serious life decisions, is there not?
There is, yeah.
And that's life. If you're going to do it really well, you better learn to get uncomfortable and sit in it.
You gotta.
Instead of running from it.
Of course.
For a lot of times in my life, I ran from things that were uncomfortable.
Oh, no.
You got to sit in it.
It's a good lesson, Ty.
Who was that voice? The voice sounds familiar. Who was that?
I couldn't place it. If I had to guess, Lane Kiffin? If I had to guess, but I don't know. Sometimes you got to sit in it, man.
Gosh, what a circus. So, Look, Lane Kiffin was everybody's top target this cycle, right? We have been hearing about that for weeks, for months on end, that Lane Kiffin, now formerly of Ole Miss, was going to be the top target at Florida, at LSU, at many other jobs around college football. The Lane Kiffin saga came to a conclusion of some sort on Sunday when it became official that he is taking the job at LSU. There had been much debate over whether or not Lane was going to leave. We reported here, not through any insider information, but just through common sense, that if he decided he wanted to stay at Ole Miss, he would have told us well before the Egg Bowl. There was no need to drag this out with all the fanfare and the hullabaloo. It seemed as though he was gone. The question was really, is he going to stick around long enough? Is Ole Miss going to allow him to stick around long enough to coach the Rebels through the playoff? He put out a statement, made it fairly well known, I would say, through that, as well as in the interview he did with ESPN's Marty Smith, that it was Keith Carter's decision at Ole Miss to not let him coach it out and finish what he started at Ole Miss. We can talk about the merits of that, Dan, here in a second. But your impression of LSU now getting Lane Kiffin from Ole Miss?
Well, first of all, I thought that was a sweet little hug from Marty Smith to Lane Kiffin at the end of that interview. I don't know if you noticed that. That's what you see a lot of when reporters are, on the ground doing that dirty work. It's just like, hey, you made this decision. Why'd you do that? All right. Hey, go get him, Tiger. That was unexpected.
Honest reporting, right? Of
Marty
course. Smith. Honest reporting.
Yeah. I'm on the ground here in Taipei. Good luck. So anyway, what did I take away from it? Look, why does Lane Kiffin leave a playoff team? Because he wants to, right? Like, and I'm not talking about specifically ahead of this year's playoff, but Ole Miss is a playoff program. Why does Lane Kiffin decide that he does no longer want to coach a program that is built to go to the playoff many years? Because he wanted to, because he either stopped having fun or stopped enjoying his time in Oxford, or some combination of that, and feeling like LSU is a bigger, better place for him to soar to new heights. I don't know. It all strikes me as like nobody forced you to do this, and despite the set of College Game Day having his back as for his desire to coach, for the LSU coach to coach Ole Miss and try to steal players, as was reported, his threat and coaches. It was all very strange to me, Ty. The whole episode was strange, but at the same time, it's Lane Kiffin, so perfectly normal. So it was just, you guys, you know how this is going to end at LSU, right? It's going to end worse than this. It's going to end so much worse, and we all know it already. We're all prepared for it, and it's going to be great.
Yeah, I mean, look, he left because he views it as a more prestigious job. He left because this has been who Lane Kiffin has always been. I'm not even vilifying him for jumping around. I mean, he's talked about it in the past. He grew up with a coach as a father. They moved 17 times or some crazy number like that. Sure. This has just always been who the guy is. The other thing that I would add is he's never been, and I'll give credit to Bruce Feldman because I watched the Audible, the show that he does with Ralph and Stu over at The Athletic. Mm-hmm. And he said it on the podcast that they did yesterday morning, and he kind of like beat me to the punch. Lane Kiffin's a bad breaker-upper. We've seen this everywhere, so this should come as no great surprise. What I do find funny, as you talk about the LSU coach coaching Ole Miss, I don't know if you saw some of the details of Lane's contract that have since surfaced since he took this job at LSU, but LSU is paying him to coach at Ole Miss, right? They are paying him his postseason bonus, even though he is no longer with Ole Miss. So if Ole Miss goes on to win a national championship, whatever escalators were present in that Ole Miss contract, pending how far they go in the postseason, Lane Kiffin will be rewarded for that. Yeah. Given the fact that he was previously there, even though he is now at LSU. So credit Jimmy Sexton, the agent, for getting it done, for pulling one over on another athletic department. They get a good coach. They get a good coach in Lane Kiffin. They also get something of a circus, but that's come as no great surprise to anybody who has signed on with Lane Kiffin in the past. What I do find interesting now is this conversation on whether he should have or shouldn't have coached Ole Miss. I think if you're Ole Miss, what you don't want is the optics of the entire stadium booing your coach as you host a home playoff game. Correct. Okay? Cut out all of like the legalese and the ethical stuff and whether or not you should do this as a hiring or HR practice. Mm-hmm. But the optics, the sheer optics of having a guy on the sidelines that might be booed out of the stadium seems like it's a bad thing. Yeah. And I would not want that if I were Keith Carter. So I understand that this is prickly. I understand that this is definitely an unprecedented situation for a guy to just straight up and leave before his team kicks it off in the 12-team field. But I understand, frankly, where all parties are coming from, and I think I side a little bit more with Keith Carter and Ole Miss.
As do I. And look, we're going to see Eric Morris at North Texas for the postseason, are we not?
We are.
We're going to see John Sumrall at Tulane, are we not?
We are.
We've seen coordinators stay. Dan Lanning stayed at Georgia through their national championship run before taking over Oregon. This is different. It is different when, however you want to, name Ole Miss and LSU as rivals, right? It's not on the level of the Iron Bowl. It's not on the level of the biggest rivalries in the sport, but it is a rivalry. It is a meaningful annual matchup. And that a coach would leave one school for the other, we really haven't seen that in a major conference on this level. Like Sark left Washington for USC, but that's not the same. It's just not the same. And so I can understand if you're Ole Miss, right? You feel sort of jerked around. 2 months ago, you were watching your coach as the subject of an E60. I don't need to play this again.
And that's life.
But it was all about how yoga had changed him and centered him. And now LSU has hired 2 consecutive troublesome coaches who've been changed by yoga.
The yoga card. They went back to the well with the yoga card twice. Incredible.
And look, it's going to end at LSU with a statement or a quote that is going to go along the lines of, it's going to start with, look, in retrospect. Like, no, not in retrospect. Everybody knows how this is going to go. It's a question of like the juice being worth the squeeze for LSU, right? If he wins you a national championship, you deal with whatever the fallout is at the end.
You make that trade. I would make that trade too. Yeah.
Right. And so there's no apologizing if he is able to bring you back to that, hallowed ground that LSU expects from its program. So, yeah, it's all just an insane circus, and I get it. And the funny stuff too is just like Nick Saban on game day and Kirk Herbstreit on game day. I think I saw Booger McFarland, like ESPN circled the wagons to be like, let him coach, come on, do it for the kids. And then there was a quote, it was like, the players full on hate him. It was just like, they are very happy he's gone after just the way everything has transpired these past few days. And
I mean, do you blame him?
No, not at all. I just thought it was funny that they were all just like, think of the kids, let them play for the coach that brought him here. And then immediately when everything went down, they were just like, F that guy. So,
yeah, I mean, look, I would probably feel similarly, and not to play too much of devil's advocate here, but
sure,
I was thinking about this a lot. What is Lane Kiffin? I mean, Lane Kiffin's been a very successful coach.
Yeah,
no doubt about it. And I understand why he is a target for many of these openings, or was a target, and will probably continue to be in the future.
Yeah.
Lane Kiffin's won like a bunch of news cycles and a couple of recruiting cycles.
Mm-hmm.
What else has he won?
No, I mean, it's also, but it's
like, what else, what is he worth all of this time and energy that people have put in? A good coach, creative offensive mind, but like what are we like hanging our hat on here in terms of like hard accolades that make all of this trouble worth it?
You're hanging your hat on the fact that he'll take your money, and the very best coaches in this sport, whoever you consider them to be, didn't seem as willing to take your money. And in a market that has, Penn State and Florida, and obviously now Ole Miss opened and shut pretty quickly. Michigan State opened up. Like, there's just a lot of big jobs and big conferences, UCLA out west, that opened up. And a lot of the perceived top candidates across the country either recently took a new job. Like Ryan Day wasn't taking the LSU job. Dan Lanning wasn't taking the LSU job. Mike Elko wasn't taking, like, all those in-demand jobs or in-demand coaches. Kurt Cignetti wasn't taking the LSU job. They weren't coming. And Lane Kiffin will. There's like the old, I wish I could attribute this to the correct person, but like the old joke of like, Shaq will take $10 million from fascism if the check clears, right? They're just like, Lane Kiffin's willing to listen. He's willing to take your money, and he's willing to win double-digit games at your university or college. And that's why all of this, it's a leverage play. That Lane Kiffin had a ton of leverage because of the Florida interest and obviously the Ole Miss interest. He was willing to listen to LSU, considered LSU to be a step up, And so you do whatever it takes because LSU didn't want to hire John Sumrall. LSU didn't want to take your pick of, Alex Golesh, guys who are good coaches, legitimately good coaches, but they didn't feel like they were of the stature of the LSU job. And so, you are what your options are, and that's the position Lane Kiffin, pretty advantageously found himself in.
Well, look, I'm this is not me saying it is a bad hire. There is a reason.
But I get what you're saying.
Everybody wanted Lane Kiffin. I completely understand the draw to Lane Kiffin. A, you know what you're signing up for.
Mm-hmm.
B, let's see him do it now. Right? If he wants to create this kind of circus to go to LSU, then you got to put your money where your mouth is.
Mm-hmm.
And he's got a lot of money. By the way, despite all of the hollow talk on the LSU side about not wanting to commit to irresponsible contracts and change the model moving forward, the buyout for Lane Kiffin is more than it was for Brian Kelly, and it is fully guaranteed.
What is
they
it?
also talk out of two sides of their mouth.
What's the number?
I didn't see the official number. I just saw that it's more than Brian Kelly, and it's fully guaranteed.
And you know what, Ty? That's life.
And that's life.
It's life.
Okay? you get what you can.
Get what
He's
you
worth
can.
what somebody's willing to pay you.
Yeah. By the way, way back when, this is my final point on Kiffin, and then we got like 80 other coaches to talk about.
No, that's fine.
Way back when, in the year of our Lord 2010, when we were younger and more full of life and had fewer grays, and I don't think we were married at that. We definitely weren't married at that
Ty
point.
maintained 3 girlfriends at a time.
Sure.
Unbelievable.
Way back when, right after Kiffin left Tennessee for USC, you and I set an imaginary line.
Oh,
The over-under 5.5. 5.5 total head coaching jobs over the course of Lane Kiffin's career. At the time that we said it, we thought it was ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
He just hit it. This is head coaching stop number 6, if you account for the brief time that he was with the Raiders.
Mm-hmm. Of course.
I had some listeners reach out to me and remind me of this. I didn't even recall it. It was 15 years ago that we set this line, and it just hit.
Yeah.
Amazing. So with all that being said on the Lane Kiffin front, thankfully, that is now over. Florida pivoted rather quickly. They hired John Sumrall away from Tulane. We started seeing these come through in rapid fire on Sunday morning. Auburn snatched up Alex Golesh from USF. Arkansas made it official with Ryan Silverfield, who had been reported by some outlets weeks ago that he was going to accept the position at Arkansas. That was quickly refuted, but now it turns out, indeed, yes, he is the guy. We saw Ole Miss move very quickly to promote from within Pete Golding, not just to an interim, but to be their full-time head coach moving forward, their permanent guy moving forward. That is in addition to some others around college football. We also saw Oklahoma State a little bit earlier on in the cycle go with Eric Morris. Of course, we know about James Franklin and Tavita Pritchard taking the positions at Virginia Tech and Stanford, respectively. Michigan State moved and fired Jonathan Smith. This shouldn't come as a great surprise to anybody.
2 years.
It seemed as if it was trending in that direction, even though it was only 2 years on the job. They now are, I believe, making it official that it's going to be Pat Fitzgerald coming out of retirement and taking over the position at Michigan State, formerly the coach at Northwestern. I say retirement in quotes because we had a bit of a legal dispute there that ousted him from that position previously. We just got word shortly before we hit record that Bob Chesney is going to be leaving James Madison and taking over the job out at UCLA. It had been rumored for a couple weeks that he was the top target out there. I know he had spoken to Penn State a couple times over, but UCLA, it seemed, was going to be the school that landed Bobby Ches, so good for him. We also found out late last night that the Kentucky Wildcats were moving on from Mark Stoops. The two names that have merged almost immediately in response to this becoming open were two coordinators, Will Stein, who was formerly, I believe, a quarterback at Louisville,
Yes.
as well as Brian Hartline, currently the offensive coordinator at Ohio State.
Yes. Whose brother was a quarterback at Kentucky.
Brother was a
Mike
quarterback.
Hartline. Yeah.
at
The
Kentucky.
2000s. Will Stein, I think, grew up. His parents, maybe, I think I saw both went to Kentucky. Like, grew up a season ticket holder there. So all interesting jobs. And I don't know, we can, if you want to go through rapid fire or if you want to sort of sink our teeth into any of these, the Auburn hire is fascinating. I think there's like a intriguing personality fit there with Alex Golesh. Just
I
because
like that hire. I do. I mean, look, I'm very guilty of doing this thing when we go. Then we've done this a million times over now with the Coaching Carousel, where I go through every hire and I sort of talk myself into it.
Of course.
I come out of this liking every single hire. And
Well,
so I think
every single official hire. You big on Pat Fitzgerald at Michigan State?
I'm not big on Pat Fitzgerald
Okay.
in general, but I understand why they would go in that direction. What I was going to say is I need to be a little bit more judicious about how I grade these hires this year and not overcommit to a guy working or not working. I was convinced that Jonathan Smith was a slam dunk.
Oh, same.
I thought that was a slam dunk hire at Michigan State, and you never know what is going to work out because it is dependent on a multitude of variables, right? NIL.
I still say love with your entire heart, Ty.
Alignment with the administration, the players, the coaches on staff. There's so many things that go into this. Go through and tell me which of these hires jumps out to you the most.
All of them. These are all big places making big moves. And obviously we have like an opening at USF now. We have an opening at Tulane. These are huge jobs in their own right as well. Okay, all of these jump out for various reasons. I like the potential fit of Alex Golesh at Auburn, especially once we all see what his hires look like on defense. That's obviously going to be huge, and how well they can do to maintain the talent and success that Auburn's had on the defensive side of the ball recently, since Alex Golesh's background has been on offense. The John Summerall thing is interesting. I know Florida people are sort of sour on it initially because of a similar background to Billy Napier, the success in the Sun Belt, and the lack of a huge job, a huge coordinator job at a major place in the SEC. But I don't know. His success has been pretty consistent. He's coached in the SEC, right? He played at Kentucky, he coached at Kentucky.
Yeah.
Has a background there. And I think it's unfair to say we should have gone in a completely different direction in terms of background and experience when these are two different guys who have two different experiences and two different visions. But again, if I'm a fan, I get it. I
totally get it. And I even said it to you on the show at some point a couple weeks ago. Are they really going to go a G5 coach after what went down with the G5 coach? But that's, I know I said it. It's sort of a brain dead take.
Right.
These are different guys. Billy Napier's success or lack of success in no way has any bearing on what John Summerall is going to be. And John Summerall, much like his predecessor, Billy Napier, was very much in demand this coaching cycle.
Yeah.
There were a bunch of schools that wanted John Summerall. Auburn thought they had John Summerall, if not for what went down with Lane Kiffin taking LSU and the dominoes sort of leading Summerall to Florida. So it wasn't just Auburn. It wasn't just like Arkansas. There were a bunch of schools that thought they might have a shot at Summerall, including Ole Miss, if Lane Kiffin left with like an appropriate amount of time to make it happen.
Right.
Like there have been conversations all throughout the South about John Summerall. So it doesn't surprise me that, and it shouldn't surprise Florida people, that they would be quick to make him the guy, even despite the experience they just had with Billy Napier. These are two different dudes.
They are. And the question is, does coaching in the Sun Belt as a head coach adequately prepare you to take over a major place like Florida? I get it.
And look, he was in the Sun Belt with Troy. He's been in the American with Tulane. And it feels to me like this is just a much different situation. I do not think it is apples to apples. I think he is better prepared to step into this role, and even more so the case because he's going to have the benefit of what went down with Billy Napier, knowing what the pitfalls were, hopefully being smart enough to know what the pitfalls were.
When he's interviewed and asked, will you hire an offensive coordinator? He'll say,
yes.
Yeah, okay, I can do that for sure.
So, look, to the extent that anybody can like these hires, John Summerall was very much in demand. So I get it. I'm with you on the Alex Golesh thing, by the way, at Auburn.
That makes me think he's an immediate failure now.
I know.
Yourself into it. Yeah.
What I like about Golesh, he's got a little bit of a screw loose.
Yeah.
Got a little bit of a screw loose. Like all these guys do to some extent, but Golesh is like the crazy dude in the fight that you do not want to be up against. And I think that plays really well at a place like Auburn.
I feel like their personalities from the personalities from their recent coaches hasn't really been that. Like Gus Malzahn doesn't strike me as that, does he?
No. But
Like-
I'm just saying, in this era of SEC football, I think you need a guy with some. It was one of the Auburn players himself who said,
Sure.
they need a guy with some dog in him.
Okay.
This is Golesh, man. That is
Hildebrand
what
type.
Alex Golesh is.
Okay. That's good by me. The Jonathan Smith thing wasn't surprising just because it did seem that, I mean, they had a ton of injuries this year, and 2 years, I think traditionally speaking, doesn't feel like enough time, but obviously in the portal era, when you can remake your roster and, you know, if you have the support, if everybody shares your vision and is willing to execute on your vision, but ultimately he was the guy who hired everybody in this program, right? He's the guy who hired the assistants and, you know, had a say in who was going to be running things behind the scenes. And it didn't work. And so it does feel like this is more than just football. Like something behind the scenes said that like, this is not our guy. And I'm not sure how you reportedly move on to Pat Fitzgerald as somebody who is a better fit in 2025 to say like, here is somebody who is going to be aggressive. Here is somebody who is savvy with regard to, you know, building out a roster through the portal and has connections in a way that we can build out this roster to compete with, you know, Michigan and Ohio State and whatever Penn State does when they hire a coach in June, and Oregon and Indiana. His name would not be at the top of my list as like the modern, savvy, electric personality to drag Michigan State kicking and screaming into the modern era. I think he was a product of a fortuitous divisional situation in the Big Ten and did a really nice job hiring and keeping Mike Hankwitz calling that defense, and, you know, found really good dudes in the trenches and on defense to help build a defense that was able to beat Purdue and Illinois and, you know, sometimes Iowa. But I don't know. It just felt like they cast a net that didn't go beyond Pat Fitzgerald. Like they knew what they wanted to do a month ago.
Instead of
right.
what Penn State's been doing, which is, you know, using a deluxe fisherman's net to try and talk to everybody. Yeah, I mean,
at this point, Penn State might hire a coach from Serbia. Like
I can talk
they
about
might
that.
be overseas.
I'll talk about that in a second.
Yeah.
Where I'm leaning on that front, but I'm not into the Pat Fitzgerald hire either, and I've never been a Fitzgerald guy.
Right.
And I understand that there is an allure given what he did at Northwestern, and that's viewed as being transformational in some sense. Clearly, he was in good with the big money men at Northwestern, and there was a deep respect for him, you know, separate from whatever went down on the legal side of things. I mean, there were a lot of people who were very high on Pat Fitzgerald. And so when his name started bubbling up as wanting to get back in the coaching game, it seems to me like there was a lot of interest in him. I mean, I think there were conversations with Penn State. I think he cast a wide net himself to try and see where he might fit in. So in terms of the style of football that I think he likes to play, which is very physical, sort of aggressive, defense-first football, I think that can play well at a place like a Michigan State. My concern with what it looks like longer term is what is that offense going to be?
Sure.
Who is going to be his offensive coordinator? Because it seems like that side of the ball only worked well at Northwestern when he had a really good quarterback who can run and he had a running back who could fill in the gaps. This is never an electric passing team or anything like that under Pat Fitzgerald. So if he wants to line up and play that physical brand of football, I need to know more about who your quarterback's going to be and need to know what you're going to do up front along the line, who your running back's going to be, and who is going to set the identity for this offense. That is what I'm most curious about on the Pat Fitzgerald side. So I'm waiting.
He went 2-14 in the Big Ten his final two seasons.
I'm going to reserve judgment until I find out some of the other pieces that he is adding. But I understand the allure. I don't think it's a terrible fit, but I do need more information before I'm willing to commit.
Okay. Bob Chesney seems good at UCLA.
Bob Chesney was very much in demand this cycle. And I think there's a chance that UCLA got the hire of the cycle with Bobby Ches.
Wow.
I really like him. He's young. He's been putting in hard work everywhere he's been. He has done a good job. I still remember when he took over at James Madison, which was just 2 years ago, right? That there was this thought that there might be a bottoming out with Curt Cignetti leaving, taking a bunch of his players. It was basically going to be a full reboot at James Madison. James Madison, by the way, has been very good at hiring coaches. They've got a track record for being good at this. And it seems as though they got another guy in Bob Chesney who may not be Curt Cignetti, but is like at least 25 years younger, something like that, than Curt Cignetti. And, obviously has some recent success to pull from. We'll see what happens with JMU as they play their championship game this weekend. They're about a 3-touchdown favorite. He's going to coach that game from what I understand. But to what extent he will be involved in the playoffs, should they make the playoffs, I have not seen any official word on that. Again, this just sort of broke the wire shortly before we hit record today.
Ryan Silverfield at Arkansas.
I'm very mixed on this one.
Okay. Why?
I wonder what he brings to the table that some of the other candidates I've heard do not. Like,
okay,
he has been very good at building an offense. We have seen that in his time at Memphis. And this year, I think the defense also took a bit of a step forward, which was nice. But
yes, top 50 defense, top 20 offense per points per drive. Yeah.
I just think it's an uphill battle at a place like in Arkansas, and even more so than Ryan Silverfield. Much of my understanding of the Arkansas program is that they are somewhat behind with regard to the other levers of modern college football, NIL spend, things of that nature.
Right. Which is where Memphis was more advanced than teams in the American.
It was because of the FedEx money that came in. So
right.
I'm very mixed on Silverfield. I feel like they wanted Golesh, but Golesh took Auburn. Silverfield was very much a name out there. Again, he had been reported to take this job weeks ago. I don't know if it's more of a Silverfield thing for me and why I'm blasé on it, or if it's more of an Arkansas thing, right? One or the other is spooking me out a little bit about this move, and I'm not fully on board with it.
Yeah, I guess the only reason to be blasé is at Arkansas, you are going to need somebody creative and energizing, right? That like Arkansas can win football games. You're going to need to, energize the money behind the scenes in a way that it isn't always, which is, you should energize the money, right? You should give reason to people with money to spend money, and maybe a very specific vision in terms of like what kind of systems you're going to be running. And not that Ryan Silverfield doesn't have that. It was not a great ending to the Memphis season this year. I think they lost their last 3 or 3 of 5, something like that.
Yeah.
As the schedule got more difficult.
They went out with a whimper. They really did.
But it's a tough conference, I guess. And he beat Arkansas. So there's that at Memphis. This feels like the most TBD to me, to see what they look like on the field, what his staff looks like, what they do in the portal, what he can do in terms of just a sales job. I think that to me is going to be the intriguing thing here. And then you mentioned the Kentucky thing, having Will Stein and Brian Hartline both have been quite successful at huge places. And then the question just remains, like, do you take a Kentucky job that has a pretty clear ceiling? Like, is that seen as a destination for either of these guys? Maybe for Will Stein, from the area, whatever, that can be a destination thing. But when you look around the SEC, and the same can be said for Arkansas, obviously, is if you have grand designs of coaching the biggest possible programs, can you make a leap from Kentucky to that? Or if you look at it as a destination, then, get as much as you can, grab as many wins as you can, have fun along the way, retire a legend. I don't know. But I'm curious to see the direction they go to, because it doesn't seem like a huge ceiling job, but I think they were ready for something new for sure.
I agree with that. So basically where we stand now, a lot of these jobs filled up very quickly. With the news now that Bob Chesney has taken UCLA, there are 3 Power 4 jobs that remain vacant. Cal, still open.
It'll be Tosh Lupoy, most likely, it seems.
Kentucky.
Yep.
I've put all my money on Will Stein.
Okay.
But we'll see. And that leaves Penn State.
Yeah.
Oh,
Dan Hawkins, come on down. Dirk Cutter, come on down.
the natives are growing restless for a name here.
Bill Parcells.
Is Bill Parcells still alive?
I hope so. I believe he is. I'm Googling, but I believe he is.
Man, to be one of the first teams to jump aboard the carousel.
Still alive.
And thank you. That's good to hear.
84 years old.
He should coach the Giants.
Yeah.
To be one of the first teams to throw their hat in the ring and to now be what feels like left without a chair when the music stops, that is a bit disheartening. I know that Penn State met with Bob Chesney and talked to him a couple times. And I know Bob Chesney, from what I have heard, would have walked over hot coals to get this Penn State job. He's from central Pennsylvania, from about an hour and a half away. Obviously knows the area, has been coaching in this part of the country for the entirety of his career. So the fact that they didn't go after Chesney signals to me that they had somebody a little higher up on the perceived food chain that they are targeting. The latest rumors are all surrounding Kalani Sitake at BYU, which is a name that started coming out of left field a few days ago. It definitely caught me by surprise, and I will admit when I first heard it, I did not believe it at all. It just felt like it was too random a name to come out of nowhere and to be seriously considered for that Penn State job. I feel like there is real credibility behind those rumors now.
Okay.
I have been kicking some of my own tires to try and figure out, is there any real validity to these? And I've seen other people talk about it. I know like Liam over at Barstool was talking about it, and Matt Brown, our friend Matt Brown, was posting about it a little bit.
Does Terry Pagula pick up your calls? Is that somebody that you're interacting with?
I wish. No. I
Frack
know
Daddy
Matt
doesn't pick up the tie calls? Okay.
I know Matt was posting a little bit about this as well, but Kalani Sitake is a very good football coach.
Yeah.
He is a very good football coach. And as you said to me earlier today, you don't win that many games by accident.
Right.
He is a revered figure in the BYU community. And so for sure, as some of these rumors have started to bubble up, many folks on the BYU side of things have been in a full-blown panic because they want to keep Kalani Sitake at all costs. He is viewed as sort of like this larger-than-life figure. He is a treasure within the BYU universe, which I
mean, he's
fully
literally
understand.
larger than life. He's a big dude.
He's a big dude.
You got to start ordering those Paul Chris pullovers. Yeah.
So this is not me reporting that Kalani Sitake is going to be the guy. This is me just saying that based on a little bit of my own research, I have plenty of reason to believe that there is a lot of truth to the rumors that we have seen, and it isn't just some random stuff that popped up at 2 a.m. on a message board.
Sure.
Where it goes from here, that remains to be seen. Would it be a fit in State College? We can have that discussion if and when he gets to State College. I don't want to get too far out over my skis, but
Right.
among the names that seem to be connected to the Penn State job, this is the one right now that feels to me like it's got the most validity.
Yeah. And if it doesn't happen, there's Mike Gundy. Like, there are guys out there. There are names.
There are. I have warmed to the idea of Kalani Sitake. I will say that.
Okay.
He has always preached the value in staying humble and hungry, I think is his mantra.
Okay.
And that very much
that would
be
play
a fit.
well.
Very much would be a fit in State College. He has constantly been in this position where idiots like you and I look at the BYU program and we say, well, they can't be any better than they were last year. Look at this roster, especially this year. I mean, I was guilty of it. They lost Jake Retzlaff like 4 days before the season, whatever it was. They've been starting a true freshman, and now they're on the precipice of winning a conference championship and going to the playoff. That stuff doesn't just happen by happenstance. He's been doing it now for a decade at BYU. He's been very good at getting more with what the rest of us idiots out here would think is less. And so given where Penn State has been with James Franklin, which is not getting more with more, I understand the logic of going after potentially a guy like a Sitake, who you can look at his body of work and say, this guy has found ways to just make it work.
Yeah.
And so if at the end of the day, Pat Kraft decides, I just want to go with the good football coach who has a track record for spinning gold whenever he's been forced to do so in a big game or just with not as much talent on the roster, I understand that logic, and I would support that. And I like Kalani Sitake. I've very much warmed to him over the years as we've covered this sport, and recently now as I think his name has started to be connected to Penn State. But we'll see. I don't know.
I wish I could find out at the end of this cycle just how many raises Pat Kraft got various coaches across America. Like sugar daddy to the stars, Pat Kraft.
That is the concern,
Kalani Sitake
right?
signs a new deal in 2 days with BYU.
That is the concern. I mean, there have been so many names that have been sent to me in connection to this job. I don't believe that they're going to get Kalen DeBoer. There might have been a conversation, but I don't believe they're going to get Kalen DeBoer. I believe some of the steam that Lincoln Riley doesn't like USC and is looking for ways out or some of his options, but I don't honestly believe they're going to end up with Lincoln Riley, and I don't think Lincoln Riley would be a great fit.
Hey, PJ Fleck will take your money.
I don't want PJ Fleck. I really don't want to deal with that.
Okay.
Right? There are these all these other names that have popped up.
Chip Kelly?
I don't want Chip Kelly.
Jimbo?
No. Come on, Dan.
West Virginia's not far from Pennsylvania. That's where he's from.
I guess, man. I'm just Josh
national
Heupel is another
championship?
name that I saw floating around out there. I don't buy that. I really don't.
Matt Campbell? Doesn't seem interested. I don't know.
I don't know what the deal is with Matt Campbell. I like Matt Campbell. I actually think that would be a fine hire.
I think he just likes coaching the names.
Maybe he likes coaching the names.
I think he does.
Maybe he's not much for promoting himself. I know that's been a popular theory out there as well. But of the names that seem like they are out there now in connection with Penn State, the final three that I would probably posit if I were putting money on any of these, and I am not necessarily privy to insider info.
Right.
I think some of the smoke around Sitake is real. I'd put him in there. I would probably put Brian Dable in there, and I would probably put Brian Hartline in there as my final three. I think it'll end up being one of those three guys. But when that happens and who it ends up being, your guess is as good as mine.
Deshaun Foster.
God. Write in solidverbal@gmail.com. Let us know what we got right, what we got wrong. We would love to hear from you. Certainly, as some of these other jobs are filled, we will do our part to keep you abreast of the situation. It won't be long before we start getting names for coordinators for some of these new places.
Sure.
I did see that, like Matt Rule, formerly my favorite to take the Penn State job, he made a move at defensive coordinator. They got rid of John Butler, who formerly had some Penn State roots. There is a whole circle going on here right now.
Yeah.
The carousel continues to spin. We'll do our part to try and stay on top of it.
Oh, man. The ball knowers in Lincoln were lecturing us preseason about how John Butler was going to be a big improvement over Tony White.
Oh, well.
Yeah. So there you have it. I think that's still going to spin. Carousel's still spinning. There's fallout from all of these hires, and Oregon might be out 2 coordinators. I don't know. It's all fascinating, and that's ahead of, it's the final stretch for the playoff.
It is the final stretch of the playoff, Dan. Let's talk a little bit, and I do mean a little bit because we don't have the official playoff rankings right now, but let's talk a little bit about where things stand for the college football playoff.
Yes.
We do have a new Verballer top 12 poll for those who are interested. It goes Ohio State, Indiana, Georgia, Texas Tech, Oregon, Texas A&M down to 6, followed by Ole Miss at 7, Alabama at 8, ahead of Oklahoma at 9. Okay.
Yeah.
Number 10, Notre Dame. Number 11, BYU. Number 12, the Miami Hurricanes. In case you are interested, we've got Vanderbilt at 13. And because I think our Verballers are very keen on the G5 schools, North Texas at 14, JMU at 15, and Texas at number 16.
I think I would take Texas over James Madison, but you never know.
I think I would too. But
I think I would take Utah over North Texas and James Madison, but you never know.
I am with you. Here is my question to you. By the way, in case you're interested in how that compares to the AP poll, they have Ohio State, Indiana, Georgia, 1, 2, 3, Oregon up to 4, Texas Tech at 5, Ole Miss at 6. They dropped Texas A&M 4 spots all the way down to number 7. They've got Oklahoma, Notre Dame, Alabama, BYU remaining unchanged. Miami jumping up a spot to number 12 in that poll as well. So
Yeah.
there's a lot to discuss here. This is all going to come to a head this weekend when we have our conference championship games. There is an outstanding question as to whether or not the committee could or should punish or take some of the hot air out of the Ole Miss balloon as a result of the coaching staff turning over, at least on the offensive side, right? We have Lane Kiffin walking out.
Charlie Weiss Jr.
Charlie Weiss Jr.
Yeah.
taking his talents to Baton Rouge as well. How do we feel about where Ole Miss is now relative to their peers, given the news of the day?
I wouldn't punish them. I wouldn't punish them. At the end of the day, it's players who play, it's players who win. I understand the brain trust is now gone and it's going to look different, but I didn't love punishing Florida State, and they lost their starting quarterback, and I still didn't love punishing them there. I don't see how you can. There's so many variables in this sport. Obviously, it's not an ideal position that Ole Miss finds themselves in, even though their new full-time coach is the interim coach / just the full-time coach now in Pete Golding, who we didn't really discuss in terms of taking over that job, but I'm sure we'll have plenty of time to. I'm happy with them there. I'm happy with them 7. I think no matter what, I mean, they're not playing. They're going to be an 11-1 SEC team. They're going to make the playoff no matter what. I guess your question is, like, do you dock them? I don't think you can dock them for something that is not in the control of, like, the administration tried to keep him. Even Lane Kiffin wanted to stay for the playoff, which is kind of funny, but, like, you can't dock Ole Miss. I don't believe you can dock Ole Miss anything for things that have happened behind the scenes when they're going to field the same team.
I think I'm with you. I think I'm with you. I hate that setup when they punish the players for the coach leaving.
Right.
I understand a coach is a valuable part of the team, but the players are the ones making the plays.
I'm the Alabama ahead of Oklahoma thing because they did recently play. And as many questions as I have about elements of Oklahoma on offense, Oklahoma beat them in Tuscaloosa.
I mean, this is a shot across the bow at the Verballers. The AP didn't do that.
I know.
But our Verballers did. Our Verballers have Oklahoma 2 spots ahead of Alabama. I'm getting a little bit nervous on the Notre Dame front. I'm a little bit nervous that so much of this public pressure is going to start to seep in to the playoff committee, and they're going to put Miami ahead of Notre Dame when we get the latest batch of rankings, and it's going to put Notre Dame very much on the bubble. I think they're very much on the bubble as is right now. Depending on what goes down this weekend, we're in line for, I think, at least 2 outside the top 10.
Right.
Grabbing playoff spots. If BYU were to pull an upset and knock off Texas Tech, that would be the death knell for Notre Dame. BYU would steal a bit. I think Notre Dame
also,
would be out.
I don't know, man. If you're, what are they going to be, 11-1? Or they are 11-1, potentially 12-1 or 11-2, and we haven't seen, a large sample size of how the committee's going to react to conference championship games, but SMU still made it in despite their close loss last year to Clemson. It's been an awful long time of keeping BYU this low.
I know.
That it does feel like, they haven't had the most control over teams all of the time. No, they didn't control the game against Texas Tech at all. I would also hold their non-conference schedule against them, but also, they went 11-1 in the Big 12. They beat legit teams up.
Right.
And they're a pretty complete, really good team. And I just don't think what they've shown on the field has them, this consistently behind teams with 2 losses in other major conferences. So I wouldn't hate putting BYU in the 8-9, 8-9 region right in there. Because at a certain point they win a ton of games. The Notre Dame Miami thing is interesting, but if you're going to keep Notre Dame above Miami last week, and Miami destroys Pitt, a team that Notre Dame also destroyed, it's not a clear vaulting data point for Miami necessarily.
No, and with SMU losing, that doesn't help the quality of the loss.
Doesn't help the quality of the loss. And
part of this is just me being a nervous fan.
I hear you.
I think if you're looking at it logically, the time to move Notre Dame more on the outside looking in. I mean, we're always going to be in this playoff conversation until the very end. But if they wanted to bump Notre Dame down another rung, the time to do that would have been last week after Alabama lost. Now, with Alabama winning over Auburn in the Iron Bowl, maybe that will give the playoff committee another opportunity to do that. I'm curious to see what happens if Alabama were to go and beat Georgia again. What would that mean for Notre Dame? So I think they're in very uncertain territory. There's a reason as a fan, and I am saying this only as a fan, not as somebody who does this show. The reason that I was rooting against Oklahoma was because Oklahoma losing would have kicked them out of the way. It would have given Notre Dame a little bit more breathing room to get them on, I think, more stable ground. But as it stands right now, I'm not fully convinced that Notre Dame is a sure thing to get in there.
But on what grounds at this point? I understand the grounds if you like Miami over Notre Dame. Like, right, they played, Miami won. The case against Notre Dame, I think you make that case 2-3 weeks ago. But, like, they both throttled Stanford, right?
They did.
They both throttled Stanford. So you have even data points there. I said this to you earlier. The broader case against Notre Dame is not a crazy one, right? That they played essentially 3 teams of comparable talent and with comparable goals in USC, Texas A&M, and Miami, and they lost to 2 of them.
Right.
And I think we afford Notre Dame less leeway because they're in more control of their schedule than others. And so you really have to lock in on how they do against the best teams and the most comparable teams, and Notre Dame does not have a favorable case there. The case against Miami is they haven't taken care of business against the sort of upper middle part of their schedule like Notre Dame has. And so if you talk about control, since those early losses, you should afford everybody an opportunity to improve over the course of a season and sort of plant a flag that they're not who they were earlier on. The best of Miami is as good as most teams in this country, let alone playoff, right? That they're just better. You know, they're playing like a top 8 or 9 team for sure at their best. The problem therein is just like they had control over those SMU and Louisville games. They quite literally threw those games away. And those are not excellent teams. Those are not good teams. And so the case against Miami is a win in August is not the same as a win in October or November. So I still think I would have Notre Dame over Miami because they've shown themselves to be in more control against their schedule. They've been able to control what they can control in a way that Miami hasn't been able to in the last 6-7 weeks.
Yeah.
And so that's the case. But I don't have a strong argument against Miami in the playoff because to my eyes, they're very clearly of playoff caliber.
Like, I would like to see Miami in the playoff.
Yeah.
I wouldn't like to see them in the playoff at the expense of Notre Dame. But I believe Miami is one of the 12 best teams in the country, and I don't think that's that hot of a take, right? I mean, I would take Miami over a bunch of these teams right now that are in this field of 12 right now.
Yeah.
I just don't know if it's going to happen for them. They're probably going to need some help. They certainly need BYU to lose. They probably need a change of heart from the playoff committee. I
think they'd need BYU to lose 42-7 again.
They would need BYU definitely to lose their game. I'm just not sure how much wiggle room there is in front of them at this point. Like, if Alabama goes into a game against Georgia and they lose by 20 points, that could be grounds to kick Alabama out. But I think that's what they would need. They would need a loss by BYU. They would probably need a resounding loss by Alabama to give them some way to go up the standings. Certainly Ohio State and Indiana aren't going to go anywhere.
Right.
Georgia at this point, I think, is pretty squarely in this field. There's just not that much else that could go on that would vault them into that top 10, which, again, is where you need to get, at least right now, because of 2 teams coming from outside with whoever's going to win the G5 rep, that spot, and whoever's going to win the ACC. The ACC thing is extremely interesting, too, and we haven't really talked about this, but because of what went down on Saturday, your game is going to be Virginia against Duke. Duke right now is 7-5. They are not ranked. They probably won't be ranked. If Duke were to pull the upset and knock off Virginia, there is a very real possibility that there's going to be no rep from the ACC, that we're going to have an American winner and then either James Madison or UNLV potentially from the Mountain West worm their way into this playoff field.
Yeah.
That would be something else. I mean, that would be a conversation, probably its own show episode. But if you are looking at this, I think objectively at this point, there is a very real possibility that the ACC could be left out completely if somehow, Duke wins and Miami can't find a way to jump up.
Yeah. And you know what? This is all your fault.
My fault.
Not your fault. No, this is all your fault. Like teams who had the ability and have shown the ability to look like a top 12 team. It's an ACC tiebreaker situation, obviously, but it's not like Miami or whoever else is in the top 20 that feels like they should be jumping higher. I mean, I think we can both agree that like Texas, no thanks. I'm just a no thanks on Texas. Like, congratulations on your win. It's a nice way to finish out the season, but it's Texas's own fault they're not here. And I'm not even like, kudos to Texas for, booking that Ohio State home and home. Don't lose to, a 4-8 Florida team. Like, even in their wins, like, did you come away from the Kentucky game, the Mississippi State game, the fourth quarter of the Vanderbilt win? Like, did you come away and be like, that's a playoff team right there? That's a playoff team right there. No,
I mean, I think Texas's evolution the second half of the season has been a really nice story, and Arch Manning has definitely grown. I would not put them in the playoff.
No.
I don't think they're a playoff team. I think there are more deserving teams in front of them that should go in their place. Now, if all hell would have broken loose last week and we had a bunch of teams fall out of contention, then that's a conversation. That's a separate conversation.
Sure.
But as it stands right now, there are far too many really good 2-loss teams that I think should go before Texas.
But in 2 of their last 3 weeks, they got to play playoff caliber teams. They beat a Texas A&M team that is legitimately very good, and they lost by 25 after a bye week against the other one. Like, no. I don't know, man. Texas in control to see how well they can control and compete. And just thanks for an entertaining season. You're not of this caliber, is my opinion. And if Duke got in, or if Duke won the ACC and doesn't get in, like, I don't know. It's just kind of funny to me. Sorry.
Is there a case for somebody like a Vandy to jump up?
I think so.
Tennessee.
I think Vandy has a good case. Look, but Vandy lost the head-to-head to Texas, I get, but Texas, again, has that third loss.
Right.
And Vandy does not have a loss like Texas does. And, again, it's a great loss Texas had to Ohio State. Texas has, a couple top 10 wins? Vanderbilt is not in the top 10 at the moment. But Vanderbilt, with what they've done against their schedule and the defenses they've faced and how the offense has been this year, I think they're of top 12 caliber. Now, you have to look at the teams that are considered to be ranked on a certain level. Like Mizzou and Tennessee haven't beaten a team with a winning record, right?
No.
And they're floating around being ranked or are 24 or 25. And so that's doing a lot of work for some of these teams. So I just prefer to look at how they've performed against who they've played. And Vanderbilt has been very impressive. And so I'd hold them in high esteem and wish we could see Diego Pavia in this playoff, though it seems like that's kind of a long shot.
Dan, before we go any further, before we close the book on this episode, of course, we invite our verballers to chime in on this playoff conversation, solidverbal@gmail.com. Hit us up on social media. We'd love to hear from you. Anywhere you can leave a comment. All that stuff helps, even if you disagree. As I say, don't be a dick, but you're more than welcome to disagree with us and offer your thoughts. We do read everything.
Yes.
I did want to do a little bit of celebration.
Uh-oh. We don't have the rights, Ty. We don't have the rights.
I cut it off at 2 seconds. We're good.
Okay.
Some teams that had really fun stories this year that maybe get lost in the shuffle. The fact that we're talking about coaches coming and going. We're talking about college football playoffs. There is a whole other universe out there, 124 other teams that played FBS college football. And I pulled out a nice little collection of teams that I think deserve a little bit more conversation, if only because they took an enormous jump in some way, shape, or form from 2024 to 2025. And in pretty much all of these cases, neither you nor I saw it coming.
Yeah.
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
North Texas.
Unbelievable.
North Texas lost its coach now to Oklahoma State. We didn't even mention that. I guess we mentioned that in passing. There's reporting to suggest that Drew Mestamaker may follow Eric Morris up to Oklahoma State.
Maybe Caleb Hawkins. Yeah.
6-7 last year. They improved to the number 1 overall S&P Plus offense this season. They know how to score points. Drastically better on defense. They're going to play for a conference championship this weekend against Tulane.
Yep.
How about the Virginia Cavaliers?
Did the portal right, went heavy on defense, didn't play a big schedule, took advantage.
5-7 last season to 10-2 this year, a 5-game leap for Tony Elliott. By the way, this is a very pivotal year for Tony Elliott. Now, if it didn't work, if it was 5-7 again, there's a pretty good chance they're looking for a coach right now.
Oh, by the way, sidebar, if you're a Virginia administrator, do not consider any prospective coach if their name is not Tony after the success this year of Tony Elliott and previous success of Tony Bennett. And that could be a lady with the Tony with an I, or, dude coaching Tony. Continue.
Drastic improvements on both sides of the ball. They finished with the top 25 defense.
Yes, they did.
This one is fairly obvious. Texas Tech.
Yep.
Texas Tech was 8-5 a year ago. They were a fine team a year ago.
Yep.
Took a jump this year. Number 3 overall in the SP Plus, number 2 on offense, number 4 on defense. That is up from number 54 overall with the number 26 offense and the number 95 defense. This is per the SP Plus.
If you listen,
time of recording.
If you listen to Texas Tech fans and you ask them, hey, what changed? They will say, nothing. Nothing changed.
We have had some interactions with the Texas Tech
Joey
fan base.
Maguire's culture finally taken hold.
Can I ask a question about that?
It's an unbelievable season. Texas Tech's defense, especially up front, a joy to watch this year.
Let me ask a question about this. I think we have addressed this
Nothing changed.
at various points throughout the year.
Yeah.
Why do Texas Tech fans view it as some sort of pejorative when we mention the fact that they spent in the portal and they used that infusion of talent to make the team better? Why do people view that as some sort of slight?
I think it makes,
I got to say, every other team in college football is trying the same thing, and very few of them have been this successful.
Agreed.
Like, if anything, I think that is a compliment that you targeted guys that you thought you could bring in, add depth. Again, none of it was really that sexy, but they knew they needed help in their defensive front seven, just as an example. They went out, they hired Shield Wood away from Houston to bring him over and run the defense. I mean, they made some really smart moves with how they attacked the transfer portal and how they hired, in this case, just one assistant coach. When we say these things, we're not saying it as if it is like some cover for a program that is in shambles and they just got lucky. This was a very targeted build in the offseason. They used their money wisely. The guys that they brought over, in large part, have hit and have been very impactful as part of this playoff run.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't understand why the Texas Tech fans have decided to chime in with some sort of hate as a result of us saying this. I think it's a great thing, and I mean it as a compliment. They were good at this when many of their peers simply were not. Full stop.
I can't speak for Texas Tech fans, but I imagine their viewpoint is yes, but there are other things just beyond
Well,
that.
sure, there are always other things, Dan.
Well,
There are always other things.
They're paying Shield Wood with a scholarship and experience, right? Job experience, not paying him with money.
Sure.
No, I get it. It makes you feel cheap, right? If somebody's just like, you're just buying wins, it does make you feel cheap.
Dude, the
even
sport
if that's
is cheap now. The
I
whole
know.
thing is cheap. Everything
I know.
is cheap. Get used to it.
I know. I imagine there is sensitivity because there is an implication that it devalues what they're able to
shut
accomplish
up.
on the field. I'm not saying
Get over
you're
it,
wrong.
guys. Get over it.
I agree, because you know what? The wins taste better. Right?
If you
The
go
wins-
to the Final Four
yeah,
after having like the 95th best defense a year ago, and it took some spend and some money from Goatee Campbell to get you there,
right.
who gives a flying F?
Yeah, I agree. I happen
Who
to agree.
cares?
Again, they haven't finished ranked. This is the first year they're going to
Give a
finish
break.
ranked in the AP poll since like 2009.
Guys are out of your minds.
I agree.
I would take it in a heartbeat.
Well, I also think it is like just how publicly it all seemed to go down with Goatee Campbell, right? That he's in commercials and, he's making a big deal of the whole thing, and he's on Twitter or X, the Everything app.
The Everything
and
app,
I don't know. You're just going to get more attention from it because of how well it worked. And so I just imagine Texas Tech fans don't want the only spotlight to be on the portal, but also, what they've done on offense, what Baron Morton has accomplished in his growth, like that Joey McGuire has largely been pretty good and has won big games before at Texas Tech, and he's just doing more of it this season. But it is, a good part of the story.
It's a huge part of the story. They got this was not the only reason they got better. It wasn't. It was not the only reason they got better.
Sure.
But they were smart with how they attacked the portal. It made them better very quickly in a way that in previous years, it would have taken years to get to this point.
Yeah.
High school recruiting and pounding the pavement. And, you have a pass to cut the line now if you're smart about it. And they were smart about it, and it worked. And good for them. I'm rooting for them.
Also, the conference got easier. There's that, too.
Just a little bit. Kennesaw State, Dan.
Yeah.
2-10 a year ago. They are playing for a conference championship on Friday.
They can bomb it downfield a little bit.
From 2-10 to 9-3. They got rid of the old coach. They brought over Jerry Mack, who I seem to remember saying in the preseason that I liked a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Their over-under was 3.5. 3.5 going into the year. They eclipsed that total far and away, finishing with 9 wins. So whether or not they win the conference is beside the point. This is a huge jump and a really good season for Kennesaw. And I believe just their second year at the FBS level. So kudos to them, man. What a jump.
Yeah. Perhaps the Owl of the Year.
It could be the Owl of the Year, yeah, absolutely.
They did just lose to Jacksonville State, who they're playing once again, back on the road going to Alabama. But it should be a good game. It should be a nice back and forth. These are not two perfect teams.
They're not two perfect teams. Kennesaw is only a 1.5 underdog on the road at Jacksonville State. So Vegas views this as a very close game. Another 2-10 team a year ago was Mississippi State. They jumped up to 5-7. You look at 5-7, you can say, they're not going to bowl, whatever. This is a Mississippi State team that was in a lot of games, not all of their games, but they were feisty.
Yep.
Every game that I watched in Mississippi State, even if they were losing by 20, they were playing whistle to whistle. And they took a big jump up, especially on offense. We started to see a little bit of that Jeff Lebby offense, that Jeff Lebby influence working its magic. Saw a big jump up on offense. It helped that they had Blake Shapen healthy, obviously. But I was a big fan of what they built at Mississippi State this year, and I hope it continues. They're always going to have a bit of an uphill climb in the SEC. That goes for everybody. But I think there are positive results based on what we saw so far this year.
Yes. So on offense, Mississippi State jumped up from where they were last season, which is what you just mentioned. And on defense, it was a more dramatic leap up because they were pretty catastrophically bad on defense in 2024. They made a really nice move, which is why they were more competitive in those, Tennessee overtime game, Texas overtime game. They beat the Big 12, the defending Big 12 champs early on in the season.
Yep.
So wasn't the most competitive Egg Bowl, but all the same, a really nice jump from year 1 to year 2 for Jeff Lebby.
Vanderbilt.
Yeah, man.
Vandy was the story of the year a year ago, 2024, for beating Alabama. Diego Pavia coming over from New Mexico State, right? I mean, that captured the imagination of all the college football hipsters.
Yeah.
And then what did they do? The conversation in the preseason about Vanderbilt was, well, can they get in it? Look at the schedule. The schedule's going to be harder. Expectations are going to be a little bit higher. There's no way they can surpass what they did a year ago. That might be the high water mark. We just talked about Vandy about being a fringe playoff team, man. They're good. They're a 10-2 team. Again, we saw big jumps on both sides of the ball. Their over-under, to the point, was just 5.5. So there was a lot of skepticism about the Vanderbilt Commodores this year. But I don't know what the season's going to bring them the rest of the way. I don't know if they're going to find some way into the playoff. If nothing more, they're going to be in a nice bowl game, and Diego Pavia probably goes to New York. But I don't see how in any universe we can't celebrate what Vandy did this season.
Yeah. Oh, just a terrific year for Vanderbilt. We've celebrated Diego Pavia. We've celebrated this offense. And at times, the defense, there were down moments for the defense, but certainly one that kept them in enough games to get them to double-digit win Vanderbilt.
Let me give you 3
Please.
Power 4 teams, and then I'm going to give you 4 Group of 5 teams, 5 Group of 5 teams. And I want you to react to these and tell me who jumps out the most to you.
Please.
Arizona went from 4-8 to 9-3.
Mhm.
Houston also went from 4-8 to 9-3. And Wake Forest went from 4-8 to 8-4.
Yeah. Throw all your money at defensive players in the portal. As many bites out of the defensive apple, if you're going to look at those improvements specifically. Arizona jumped up huge, and that was, the development of players already there, but they reinforced with depth and just they added a ton there. They made a big new defensive coordinator hire in Danny Gonzalez. Wake Forest, obviously, Jake Dickert's background is on defense. That at times, maybe not the Florida State game, but at times looked like a really formidable defense, at least for a year one, given where they were. I think that's the lesson there, man. Like, if you need to get better quickly, even, Mississippi State threw a lot at defense.
Yeah.
They were I believe Mississippi State ended the season as the SEC's most improved defense.
Wow.
So, yeah, that's what I take.
Defense wins championships as it goes.
Yep.
We had Old Dominion taking a jump from 5-7 to 9-3, big jumps.
Mm-hmm.
On both sides of the ball, they finished the year winning 5 games. New Mexico, your beautiful, beautiful Lobos. They were 5-7, also took a jump up to 9-3. They were involved in that 4-way tiebreaker in the Mountain West, but did not make it in, which is a bummer for you.
Thanks to Bill Connolly's SP Plus playing a role, even though I think UNLV lost to both of the teams that they played in this tiebreaker, but ended up because who was the emperor in Gladiator? Is it Commodus?
Commodus, yeah.
Doing the thumbs up, thumbs down thing. Bill Connolly, thumbs down on the Lobos, apparently. Oh, well.
San Diego State also took a pretty big jump, 3-9 to 9-3. They finished number 1 in the country on special teams. In addition,
hidden yards. They finished number 3 in the country behind Ohio State and Texas Tech. I shouldn't say finished. Going into the final week of the season, the numbers haven't updated yet, but they will finish as like a top 6 or 7 defense nationally.
Crazy.
Against FBS teams. Defensive scoring efficiency. Yeah.
How about Missouri State going 7-5 in their first season of FBS?
It's great. Really strong.
And last but not least, we mentioned it earlier, James Madison. James Madison was 8-4 a year ago. They finished the year, regular season anyway, at 11-1. Of course, they did so well, they're going to lose their coach to UCLA. But they do have a game this week playing for the Sun Belt Championship against the Troy Trojans. I believe they're about a 21-point favorite, something in that neighborhood, Dan. Should they win, there would be an opportunity for them to go to the playoff, maybe, depending on how things shake out otherwise, especially in that ACC game with Duke. If Duke were to win, that I think would open up the floodgates for JMU. Or if the committee, when they release their next batch of rankings, they have seemed to favor whoever wins out of the American. But if they have a change of heart, if they decide that they want to put JMU, give them a little bit of love, maybe we could be talking about something else.
So we're basically saying the Dukes are counting on Duke.
That's right.
The Dukes are counting on Duke. And JMU, I assume they're just going to hire Lehigh's coach, right? There's the path. Kevin Cahill, come on down.
Come on down. Those are the teams that impress me. Very, very quickly, and then we're going to let these people go.
Yeah.
Early bird special.
Here is what your schedule looks like with regard to all of the conference championship games this weekend. And we will preview these in a little bit more detail on our next episode. We've got 4 games on Friday. We've got 5 games on Saturday. The games on Friday are all G5 games. We've got the Conference USA Championship, Kennesaw State at Jacksonville State, which we mentioned. We've got the Sun Belt Championship at 7 p.m. on Friday night between Troy and JMU. We've got the American Championship at 8 p.m. on ABC between North Texas and Tulane, a big stage for these teams, both of whom have lost their coach to bigger schools. Right now, Tulane favored by about 3 points. And then to close things out on Friday night, this is an 8 p.m.er on Fox. It is UNLV at Boise State. UNLV is currently a 3.5-point underdog, Dan Rubenstein.
It's actually going to be a pretty terrific weekend.
And then on Saturday, we've got BYU at Texas Tech. That one's at noon. We've also got the MAC Championship. That's the only G5 game that's going to be played on Saturday. Also at noon, Miami, Ohio at Western Michigan.
Defensive slugfest, by the way.
What's
the MAC
that?
doesn't have that reputation. Defensive slugfest.
Oh, indeed. Then to round out the weekend, we've got Georgia a 1.5 favorite against Alabama in the SEC game. We've got Duke about a field goal underdog squaring off against Virginia. They play that one in Charlotte. And then the big one, number 1 versus number 2, the only 2 unbeaten teams in FBS college football. It's going to be number 1 Ohio State, about a 6-point favorite squaring off against Indiana in Indianapolis, Dan. So maybe a little bit of a home crowd situation for Indiana.
That's true. I would assume so, but Ohio State travels.
They do travel. There's going to be a lot of scarlet and gray out there.
Speaking of Commodus, Bill Connolly, I liked that he called the Big Ten championship game potentially a practice shot for Indiana. I don't know if you saw that. We were just look, it's going to be a tough one. It's an uphill battle to take down Ohio State, no matter who you are. This year's version of Ohio State, it seems. But you get to see something if you're going to play them ahead of time. If you're going to play them in the weeks to come, that maybe you can adjust to. So tough to beat anybody twice if you're dealing with 2 quality teams, and there's at least that.
It's going to be a very active weekend, to say the least. We would encourage everybody to make sure that they tune in. At midnight, we will go live after that pairing of games, after we figure out who wins the ACC and the Big Ten, and we will recap everything. We are still putting together our schedule for Sunday. So in the past, what we have done is we have gone live at some point after they announce the playoff rankings, and we've put together a show based on what the field looks like, what the pathways look like, et cetera, et cetera. But last year was surely our first bite at that apple, trying to figure out how to dissect all of this. I think we're a little bit smarter now, so we're going to put plans together. We'll announce those on Thursday for what you can expect from us this weekend, but we want to make sure we stay on top of not only the conference championship games, but once we know what that field of 12 looks like, we'll be here to make sure that you're up to date.
My only parting message here, if you're listening from either the Chi Omega or I guess Delta Gamma house on the LSU campus, keep an eye on your DMs, right? Mind the DMs. You never know.
You never know.
You just never know.
Never know what's going to pop up in there.
No.
For that guy over there, my good friend Dan Rubenstein, for myself, Ty Hildebrand, thanks for downloading, for listening, for supporting what we do. Check us out at forballers.com. In the meantime, you know the drill. As always, stay solid.
Peace.